Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome back. I understand, is this y'all's first in-person meeting in a while?
Somebody closed us down last month.
Who did that?
Closed us down.
They sure did. Well, it's so good to see everyone. That library. You need to have a word with that director back there. Well, thank y'all for coming out this morning, and we gave our live State of the City last week at the Winfrey, and we traditionally, I think, have done it the following week or very closely after that to the Friends of Hoover Library, and so we're here today. And gosh, 2020 was pretty challenging. I don't think any of us ever imagined that it was going to be as difficult as it was, but we stood pretty strong together, I feel like. We had a lot of lessons that we learned, and we were able to move forward. And I know that many in our community and certainly across the country and the world lost loved ones to this horrible disease, and it is every bit of that. So I just continue to extend my deepest and sincerest condolences to folks that have lost loved ones and are experiencing some really difficulties right now. But we couldn't have made it through last year and even through this year without a lot of teamwork, and I'm so thankful to our city council and how they have come together, and we're working just really, really well together. I'm particularly grateful for our council president, John Lyda, who was just had exemplary leadership on the council. Since he was sworn in November with the rest of the council. Of course, we have two new members, Steve McClinton and Sam Sweeney, and they jumped right in and doing just a great job, working very hard to make our city better and better each day. And of course, Councilman Posey, Councilman Middlebrooks, Councilman Murphy, and Councilman Shaw, our veterans, have returned to the council, and they are continuing the great work that they started back in 2016. And then to all of our employees, we have 800 employees, and I really can't say enough about them and how wonderful they have been and the outstanding work that they did during COVID. But they just, the way they interacted with each other, with our public, with our businesses, it was really wonderful how they took care of all of those entities, our city, our businesses, our parks, all of that, the public safety, all of that still had to go on. And our employees just did a magnificent job. Thankful to the Chamber of Commerce. They did great, just yeoman's work as well, and some of the things that they worked with us as we helped these various businesses throughout our city, and they did a great job. I've lived in Hoover now, or worked in Hoover over 45 years, and I've experienced the strength of this community and the kindness of our citizens. And when COVID-19 struck, I saw your responses, reaching out to neighbors, helping one another. I wasn't really surprised, but rather I was comforted by the signs that confirmed who I think we really are in this city. There were so many acts of kindness, large and small, that really went unnoticed, and so many heroes stepped to the plate and went above and beyond to help us deal with this disease. And of course, when COVID hit, understandably, there was a lot of unknowns and fears about the disease. And I think about our first responders, like our firefighters and our police officers and our public works. They continued their duties in spite of all of those unknowns. I mean, they were right at the forefront. So I just am very grateful for all of them. If you get an opportunity to tell them thank you, I know that you will, and I would appreciate that. But like our first responders, doctors and nurses, they were really on the front lines each and every day and had so much that they had to deal with, working closely with those COVID patients. And then I think about, we had so many people in our community, but we recognized a couple of individuals at this last week's State of the City. A lady named Wren Manners. Wren, she does small catering jobs, and she noticed that there were a couple of doctors in her neighborhood, particularly husband and wife doctors, and she said, they're working all the time, and so she started preparing meals for them. Then she got online and started talking to her neighbors and put it on her Facebook post about how they could help these physicians. So they started cooking meals for these doctors and taking it to their homes. And just something she didn't have to do, but she stepped up, saw a need, and how wonderful that was of her. And this happened when she was really going through some pretty difficult times herself in terms of friends and family that had suffered, and she had even lost some friends and family. So that was an outstanding effort and by her, and we sure did appreciate it, and we recognized her for that. And then there was another lady, Rebecca Crossman. Rebecca was, she saw like all of us did, face masks became the item, and social distancing, and face masks were difficult to come by. You saw where the hospitals were, they were making them, using everything. The hospitals were running out. But you can imagine how difficult it was even for any of us citizens to get a mask. So Rebecca, she happens to be a seamstress, and she started making masks. And she recruited some of her friends to make masks. And before you know it, they had made thousands of masks and distributed them to those in need. So just acts of kindness, random kindness, people stepped up, and there are stories like that throughout our city that we could talk about. And our own library, wow, what beacons of help they are in our community, and they stepped up really, really big during the pandemic. I know they closed their doors, but their services didn't stop. They found ways to serve the public through electronic means, and a lot of our staff members quickly turned their skills in a new direction, and that is that we knew that the community would have many questions and needs, and so we worked to establish a city resource that they could call. Everybody's lives just kind of instantaneously changed on that Friday, March the 13th. So we were able to set up this phone line, a community helpline, and our librarians staffed those phone lines, and they took their reference skills and used them to help others. So, of course, we have Amanda back here. Thank you so much for your leadership, and she's got a wonderful staff. Carrie Steinmill was a big part of that, and many, many others that I could call out. But they manned those phone lines, staffed those phone lines for we're getting calls even today from people that find themselves in desperate need or just don't know which way to turn. So they can call this phone number and they get help. So imagine that. Our librarians really filled a huge, huge need in our city during that time. And then I look back how quickly our overall team responded. I remember on Friday the 13th, both the president and the governor, they all issued these orders affecting us, and we started talking about social distancing. And that weekend, we started seeing major tournaments and events begin to cancel at the Hoover Met, the Finley Center. Our municipal courts began to shut down, the Hoover Senior Center, the library, all of them, the city ballparks, all of those things, like a domino effect, just started shutting down or reducing their services in one way or the other. So on March the 16th, in the days to follow, we established the Hoover Emergency Operations Center and activated our incident management team. And they quickly implemented an incident management plan, and this was just extremely important because things were happening at an incredible pace. The information was coming in at a rapid pace, and we had to get good, clean information out. So we developed that tool for us. So from closing schools to closing businesses to arranging workplaces at home and for our employees, there were so many things that had to be incorporated, new things that we'd not done and implemented. So I look back now, realize that had we not done it so early, if we'd not really been on top of it so early, it would have really been chaos. Instead, we had very orderly, synchronized operations. We had to sanitize our fire stations. We had to sanitize City Hall because we still had people coming in and out. Our department heads had to develop alternate work schedules for employees. Our IT department, they began working on setting up remote access capabilities so the business of the city could continue uninterrupted. This was actually all still under construction during COVID, and so we had to work around that, and they had to work around us, but I'm sure glad that they never missed a beat and they kept working. Yeah, so communication was just imperative during this time. We used several mechanisms to make sure that we were getting our message out and that we were being effective about it. So we held weekly and at times bi-weekly conference calls that included our department heads, our city council member, and we made sure that our school superintendent was included in that as well. We instituted a program called Everbridge, and that was a community notification system that allowed us to share pertinent information like the phone numbers that I told you about a while ago, or to access the various helplines that were available for our community. So they could get that information through a text message or an email, and hopefully some of you took advantage of that and were able to use Everbridge. But that gave us a really important and valuable avenue to which we could communicate very vital information to our citizens. And then we created a web page that was dedicated solely to COVID-related incidents, everything from health orders to news releases that we sent out. And this time, during that time, I also shot a weekly video message that informed our citizens of the issues that we were facing, and that we shared all of those through our various social media platforms. We participated in a number of media interviews covering the steps that we were taking at the city level to address the virus. Several of our employees participated and are still participating in weekly calls with different local, county, and state government groups that are they're all experts in their area, and that way we continue to share information among each other, and we get the proper information out to our community as well. And then, you know, there really wasn't a great time for COVID to hit, but nevertheless, when it came mid-March, it hit just as our schools were headed into spring break, and that presented a very unique challenge in itself, because even though the schools closed, they still had many children that relied on that daily meal. That was the only meal that they got. And so Dr. Murphy, we got together with Dr. Murphy, and she asked us how we could help. And so I asked our Chief of Operations, Jim White, to oversee that task, and he did that. And since our recreation center was closed, Jim rallied that staff together, all of those folks that are typically training you how to be fit and lift weights and do all of those things. They turned their efforts towards delivering and preparing and delivering meals for school children. So Jim assigned members of the Park and Rec with school employees and they all teamed up to deliver the meals. And you know, this just didn't happen for 1 week during spring break. This went on for 10 weeks. And it was a huge task, but here in Hoover, we're blessed. We've got incredible resources and many organizations. I'm sure you've heard of Hoover Helps and Neighborhood Bridges. And with their help and certainly our employees that I just mentioned, they were able to do some really, really wonderful work. So just think about this. In 10 weeks, Hoover Helps prepared approximately 6,000 bags of food that helped approximately 12,000 school children. And then Neighborhood Bridges, that's an organization, they take information from the school counselors when they identify a child that is in need, and they put that out to the public, and the public is able to buy a coat, buy a car, buy a washing machine. You never know what the need might be. But through Neighborhood Bridges, nearly 2,000 families received benefits, and over $20,000 was given in direct monetary contributions to help those families in need. And so those are the types of folks that we've been able to work with, that just our ordinary citizens that are not looking for any pat on the back. They're just out there to help all of our citizens. And then we set up internally, I told you about the Hoover Helpline. We also set up the Business Helpline, and that became operational. And then we set up Eat, Shop, Play in Hoover website, and that was created by the Chamber. That also went into effect. Doing many things as we could to help our small businesses. And we began to, worked a plan out to establish the Hoover Cares Volunteer Business Advisory Coalition. And this provided a channel and mentors for small businesses to get their questions answered about the various financial opportunities that would help them stay afloat. You remember at that time, businesses were having to shut down, and it was very cumbersome. A lot of these were mom and pop operations, so we were able to actually send mentors and sit side by side with them to help some folks that, you know, ran a restaurant, but they didn't know how to do this or that and other in terms of dealing with the government, or they had a small dress shop. All of those things, it just helped them get over the hump. And of course, as the months went on, we purchased 18,000 pieces of personal protective equipment ourselves: masks, gowns, gloves, all of the hand wipes, all of those things. And I'm happy to report that, I mean, we were responding, our first responders, our police and fire were responding constantly to COVID cases in the community. And fortunately, out of 800 employees we had that we know of, 65 known positive cases. So that says to me that, you know, we were doing a pretty close, as perfect a job as we could, and that our firefighters and police were wearing their gear that they should, and that we were doing, you know, a really good job here at City Hall as well, keeping our staff in good shape and free from COVID. One of the most difficult yet most rewarding times during the pandemic came in May, and our high school seniors, you know, they were about to graduate. So at that time, Dr. Murphy and her staff made the decision to hold formal graduation ceremonies for our seniors. Dr. Murphy said it was the most difficult decision she had made in her career in deciding to move forward. Can you imagine? She made a lot of difficult decisions, but that was the most difficult. So I also felt that our students had already lost so much due to the pandemic and had worked so hard to get to that point. To forego celebrating that moment just didn't seem right. I wanted them to enjoy a graduation, and working hand in hand with Dr. Murphy, we were able to make that happen. And it wasn't without controversy. In fact, the story made national headlines, but it was an example of how to conduct a safe ceremony. But some not only questioned it, but also denounced that decision. Still, we moved forward in faith, and we found ways to make sure that those ceremonies were held in a safe manner while honoring the outstanding accomplishments of our young people. And you think about that, March the 13th, and by May we were able to demonstrate that. So it took a lot of courage on a lot of people's parts to make that happen. And then from a financial perspective, I'm really proud of our staff and our city council. I think we were very much ahead of the curve in doing all that we could to protect our city during this very difficult time. And we started responding to COVID in very early March, around the 1st or 2nd of March, when we saw how it was affecting other countries. And so we wanted to be prepared in case it hit the United States in a similar fashion. So, we called on our department heads and asked them to look at ways to reduce spending and to cut costs. And this was weeks before the national emergency declaration. Everything was on the table too. We left no stones unturned. We implemented a strict energy saving plans. I mean, we made sure you turn the lights off. I mean, those are things that you save quarters, dollars, and it builds up. We didn't fill any positions in the city other than very critical public safety positions. We worked closely with our city council, who they implemented safeguards to prevent damages to the city's finances, and they put in very practical measures that helped us stay within our budget constraints. During this time, our CFO retired, and we had to appoint a new CFO, Tina Bolt. You see up there, and I tell you, we never missed a beat. She is just fabulous. She really got us in even better shape than we were before. So we're grateful for everything that she did. But she came in and helped us reorganize some of our city departments. We did not lay anyone off. We didn't furlough anyone. We simply, through attrition, we were able to eliminate some of our department head positions. And this alone saved around $750,000 annually for us. And that savings will continue on from now on. So we originally had predicted that we would lose somewhere between $8 and $15 million in revenue. That's a significant cut in our operating budget. However, we aggressively cut operational expenses, and then we started receiving even better than projected revenue. And really by the end of 2020, we were in the black and financially sound. So I'm very proud of that. And then things just continued to happen. The challenges just continued. As we were dealing with the ongoing COVID crisis and the financial challenges and the schools closing, we were shocked to hear about the death of George Floyd. And that was a situation that turned our country upside down. And, you know, that tragedy happened thousands of miles away from here in Minneapolis, but it sparked an emotional outcry across the country, including right here in Hoover. Protesters began holding nightly and then weekly protests on city property, and that required us to add another layer to our incident management plan. I believe our police officers performed just splendidly. They did an outstanding job. They were working long hours to make sure that our city was safe and under control, while at the same time, equally important, making sure that those citizens had the opportunity to express their First Amendment rights. So I'm proud to report that our police department, they're currently undergoing an accreditation process along with the fire department. And this is a national, it's a very intense national accreditation process. And it will validate the things that we're doing well. And on the other hand, it'll identify areas that we need improvements. So I'm very proud of them to do something like this and to take on this very huge step in their operation. Something that we have worked on early on in this administration is diversity. As issues of diversity and equity and inclusion move to the front of our public conversations, the City of Hoover continued along a path that we set early on in 2016. And so at the start of my term, we identified areas of improvement, making sure that local government, us, reflected the community that we serve. And since that time, we've taken measurable steps to simply do what is right. We've established a process to ensure that jobs within the city are advertised to all groups and that we deliberately include women, people of color, veterans, and people living with disabilities, often not thought of. We've begun a proactive recruitment effort to find the best qualified candidates. We've refined our hiring and interview processes to become more welcoming to our applicants, and we've designed and designated an administrator in HR to serve as our diversity coordinator to help these efforts. And we've provided our staff with very appropriate training on diversity, our executive staff, our managers, and our supervisors. Moreover, most importantly, we've removed unintended barriers that might limit the success of underrepresented applicants in finding work with the city. And all of these efforts represent permanent, deliberate changes to how we staff our city government. We owe it to our citizens to always find the best people available to serve the city and to train those to the highest level possible and to treat them with dignity and respect so that we can retain them within our organization. This is a mindset that we adopted from the very beginning of this administration, and it's one that we will continuously build on to make our city strong and an inclusive organization. And again, tragedy struck. Even as COVID crisis loomed, our city was hit with another tragedy on a quiet Friday afternoon. The day before July the 4th, a young boy's life was senselessly taken along and some others seriously injured at the River Chase Galleria. A young man, Roy Tay Giles Jr., and his family were shopping at the River Chase Galleria, buying outfits for the coming holiday. They were standing in line, and suddenly shots rang out, and Roy Tay was fatally struck, leaving just a tremendous hole in the hearts of his mom and dad and grandparents and his family. 3 other shoppers were also struck, but thankfully they survived. Once again, our police department moved with lightning speed to investigate this terrible crime and arrest those responsible for it. You know, in the days following, again, our Hoover citizens stepped up. They embraced the Giles family in many, many ways. They helped coordinate a fund for the family to help with expenses, and the members of our community gave generously thousands of dollars to that family. Our police officers, many of whom knew Roy Tay's grandmother, raised money within the police department, showing their kindness to a longtime friend. Councilman Murphy, he organized a community prayer vigil in Roy Tay's memory, and many in the Hoover community turned out as a sign of support for that family. Now I'm going to choke myself drinking water. Excuse me. But in the weeks and months following, we worked so hard to increase various security measures at the River Chase Galleria. In partnership with the mall, we increased the number of officers assigned to routine patrol inside the mall. We reactivated our police substation at the Galleria, and that increased the police presence around the entire mall. Brookfield Properties, which owns the mall, they added these specially trained canines that, while they were non-intrusive to our shoppers, they were able to sniff out anyone carrying a weapon. They also invested in new equipment to improve instant communication between their staff and the Hoover Police Department. So we know these things won't bring Roy Tay back, but nevertheless, we're committed to making our city as safe as possible and letting those criminals know that your brazen acts of lawlessness and evil will not be tolerated here, and we'll move swiftly to arrest you for that. So in other business went on, the city kept going, and obviously we've talked about all the challenging things that we went through, but we saw a lot of positive things happen. 1,123 new business licenses issued in our city. 23 new commercial buildings were built. 399 single-family homes were constructed. And we finished 2020 with a nearly 16% reduction in total offenses compared to 2019. We opened right down the street our new $4 million police training center, and we're excited about the opportunity that that's going to provide for just really first-class, cutting-edge training to our officers, but also officers throughout the state of Alabama that will come here to train. We also are very, very close to completing Fire Station 11 out by the Hoover Met, and that will be our 11th fire station in the city of Hoover. When I came here, we had one little fire station with 6 firefighters and volunteers. I'd have never dreamed in 1,000 years that we'd have 180 firefighters and 11 fire stations. So it's a big fire department now. So I told you about all of the things that had closed, but we kept we kept Aldridge Gardens open, and that was a way to give folks an opportunity to go outside and exercise. They could have a picnic or just walk around the gardens. They're so beautiful. A record number, 115,000 people came through the gardens at that time. That's a 40% increase over last year. And then this year we implemented our strategic plan. I really believe that it's going to be a very, very good year. It started off very good. Our financials are looking good. I want to just give you just a few things that we're going to be working on, not only this year, but the next 4 years as well. We continuing to look at ways to improve and bring new and better things to the River Chase Galleria, working with that, with Brookfield. Again, that's our city center, and we're working every day. It's just a difficult task dealing with 8 to 10 different owners. Brookfield owns the mall, but all of those other out parcels belong to someone else. So, but those are just obstacles that we are working through, and we're going to do that. We're working very hard to get the money to build this new interchange at 459 and South Shades Crest Road. We believe that is going to be the answer to helping with traffic out on that side of town. The National Computer Forensic Institute, just an outstanding facility that the Secret Service runs here in the city of Hoover. We're working with our congressional delegation and the governor's office and others to increase their footprint. They are located now at the Public Safety Center, but they train police officers, district attorneys, and judges. They come from all over the United States to Hoover, Alabama, to learn how to investigate cyber crimes. And so many of the crimes today that are committed, there's a lot of information that's on these phones here, and they can track where you are. It's just really phenomenal what they can do. So that is the only facility in the country, and it's right here in Hoover, Alabama. So thousands of policemen, district attorneys, and judges have come through Hoover, Alabama each year to train and to learn this new technique. And interestingly, the Secret Service is so proud of it. Any new Secret Service agent that is hired has to come to Hoover, Alabama and go through this training. So we're proud of it. We want to keep it here. We're going to continue to upgrade our technology network throughout the city. We're expanding our automated traffic engineering solutions where your traffic lights are smart traffic lights. They read the traffic, and they're just not operating on a timer, but they read what's going on, and they operate at peak times or slow times, and that's just a better way of controlling traffic. We are also, something that's very important, developing a continuity of operations plan to make sure that our city government will function in the face of any type of disaster. If something were to happen here and we lost our 911 center, what would we do? That all needed to be updated, and so we're working very hard to do that right now. Something else we're working on is to implement a supplier diversity program for city purchased goods and services. And also we're focusing on great ways to attract great workers to our city, and just develop best policies to make sure that we train them properly and keep them here. It's just so important that we continue to get that high quality employee in our city. And then all of our city departments, we've asked each of them to work on developing service-oriented goals for performance. And our leadership team will be able to track those efforts year to year, and then we hold ourselves accountable for the way that the public dollars are used. In fact, we recently started displaying on the city's website a set of information dashboards that show key activities within the departments. So our elected officials, our citizens like yourself, businesses, you can visit those pages, and under the open government section of our website, you can see the key performance indicators that we are tracking or tracking ourselves. So as the months go by, we'll be able to really do a comparative analysis of the trends and make smart decisions about how we move forward with budgets or allocation of resources. Many businesses use this type of management method, and it's important that we bring this into our management style as well. So I've said it often, and I'll say it again, I'm so grateful to lead this outstanding, wonderful city. Our employees are just phenomenal. Our citizens are just incredible individuals that are giving, and it really is a blessing. Francis and I are blessed each and every day to wake up and be able to serve the city. So as I close, I'm so encouraged about the future of our city. In fact, it is very, very bright. Thank you very much.